We have password protected our reading and are making use of a waiting room beforehand. This is in the interest of ensuring that this reading remains a safe space for everyone. However, if a bad actor disrupts the call, we will adjourn immediately and log back in. Thank you, Jocelyn Dawson, our journal's marketing manager, who has been very thoughtful about the technology we are using tonight and who is overseeing the waiting room as we come together. While we are all quickly becoming excellent users of Zoom, this is still a trial and error process. So if there are any technical problems, please message me privately or the larger group if that feels relevant. We have 4 readers tonight, 3 of whom are with us live, and 1 who has generously provided a video that I will be playing for you. The order of tonight's reading is going to be Alexis Pauline Gumbs, who is appearing pre-recorded, David Grubbs, Margaret Randall, and Renato Rosaldo, who are all with us here. Every poet will be reading for approximately 10 to 15 minutes. Both David and Renato will be introduced by our wonderful design manager, Amy Ruth Buchanan, who is also the designer of Renato's The Day of Shelley's Death, and David's Records Ruin the Landscape, which I unfortunately do not have on hand. I will be doing short introductions for Alexis and Margaret. In addition to Amy Ruth and Jocelyn, I would like to thank our editorial manager, Jessica Ryan, our publicity and advertising manager, Laura Sell, and our director, Dean Smith, who were all instrumental in putting this event together. I also want to thank all of our generous readers for spending this evening with us. I started working at Duke University Press about 1.5 years ago. As I'm sure is true for many, these have been 2 of the most exceptional years, culminating now in a kind of reimagining of day-to-day life. In addition to challenges, this past 2 years, I've seen a number of beautiful things enter the world, including 4 amazing books. Margaret Randall's I Never Left Home, Renato Rosaldo's The Chasers, David Grubbs' The Voice in the Headphones, and Alexis Pauline Gumbs' Dub. One of the best parts of each of these books and each of these poets is that they refuse to be only one thing. It is not only poetry, it is also theory and community and ceremony. It is not only poetry, it is jazz, a performance. It is not only poetry, it is also sociology, an archive or memory. It is not only memoir, it is poetry, it is relationships, and it is art. These books define for me what literature needs to be in an age of rapid change, a constant dialogue with, an invocation of the many dimensions of our cultures and worlds. I feel blessed in these strange and isolated times to work with these thinkers, to have their books beside me, to read into a new life with them. I feel extra blessed to have them here virtually together tonight. So I would like to start by introducing Alexis Pauline Gumbs. Alexis Pauline Gumbs is a queer Black troublemaker and Black feminist love evangelist and an aspirational cousin to all sentient beings. Her work in this lifetime is to facilitate infinite, unstoppable ancestral love in practice. She is the author of Dub, Spill, and M Archive, all published by Duke University Press. So I am going to share my screen and share this video. Give me a minute if it, if there's any audio problems, just send them in the message and I will work on it.
Hello, everyone. I'm really excited to be able to be a part of this virtual reading through this pre-recorded video. I know there's incredible energy zooming through the airwaves tonight. And I am very honored to share from my new book. It's called Dub, Finding Ceremony. And that subtitle, well, the whole thing, is inspired by Sylvia Wynter, who says that after humanism, the ceremony must be found. So for me, this book is about finding those ceremonies. Every single passage in this book is directly related to something that Sylvia Wynter wrote or said or emphasized. And this is interactive, even though I'm recording this video beforehand and I'll be watching all my fellow poets on a video afterwards, in this moment, we are still together. And so I want you to think about and type into the chat, if you can, who you want to dedicate your listening to. Somebody who's not listening to the poetry reading with you, but who you've been thinking about, maybe because of what some of the other poets have shared that has moved you or inspired you, maybe just because of the day that you've had, or just some reason that this person is on your heart or on your mind. Could be someone living now, could be someone who lived before, someone older than you, someone younger than you. I am dedicating my participation to my niece, Mackenzie, who is 3 years old, and she is really thinking about and wrestling with this idea that we can speak to our ancestors with our hearts. She's told me multiple times, she's like, I'm trying to listen with my heart. So I'm dedicating this process to her because I love her. Excited about who you're chatting, that you're dedicating your participation to, and you can say something about why, and you don't have to. And then I would also, because I'm a demanding reader of poetry, I would also like you to either think up for yourself and not share, or if you want, share an area of your life where you would like some more opening. It might be that there is a project that you're embarking on. It might be that there's a relationship in your life, in your family. It might be that there is just some place that feels more closed than you want it to be, and that you're intending to open up in your life. And I would love for you to also listen with that in mind. What's an area that I want to open in my life? I am inviting an openness in my relationship to time. I want to be open about it, and I'm open for it to be transformed in the way that it needs to be. So I'm going to read to you from Dub the ceremonies of opening that I was inspired to find from studying Sylvia Wynter's work. And this was really about opening myself to this process, and has this beautiful illustration by my partner, Shangodare Akinwale. And it's the openings of a particular form of coral that are illustrated there. So let's take a deep breath, inhaling and exhaling, and open. 1. If you gathered them, they would be everyone. Gather them. Recognize in them your jawline, your wet eyes, your long-fingered hands seeking what but this multitude. If you gathered them, they would not fit on this island. They would spill back into the ocean whence they came. When you gather them, they will have fins and claws and names you do not know. Gather them anyway. Some will look you in the eye. Some are too microscopic to see. If you don't gather them all, you will never be free. If you gathered them, you could not hold them, scold them, demand back what you think is lost. Gather them today, or your soul is the cost. Gather the ones who sold and who bought and who tossed overboard. Gather the erstwhile children in the name of the Lord. Gather the unclaimed fathers, the ones with guns and with swords. Gather them up with your hands, with your relationship to land, with your chin set. You are not done yet. You never will. Gather them more. Gather them still. They will unfound you and surround you, unfind you and unwind you, travel to you and unravel through you, through your own needle. Gather the thread. Collect your dead. 2. Put yourself in the center and draw them in. Stand where you standing, which is not under and not over. You not gonna get over it. And where you stand is not always standing either. Sometimes quicksand, sometimes bended knee, very often that cross-legged thing you do, sitting on the floor or hugging your own legs like they were people. Be where you are and draw them to you. You might need to move your hands, one of those legs, or a book from blocking your heart. That would be a good start. Put your arms out like if you were floating in water, daughter. They know where to find you. 3. This is what we did. We put everything where it needed to go. We knew about need by intuition. We knew about need by experience. We knew about need by not needing what we thought we needed. We needed you to know something else. So this is what we did. We knotted up our knowing with our needing. We kneaded back our needing into not this, not then, not again. And we knew the net of our needing, the need of our knowing would wander and would wait. We knew it like we knew salt. We knew it like we knew bait. We know it like we know you. Don't hesitate. 4. First, the sound. You hear it, even if no one else does, even if you wake up and already don't remember. Second, the seconds. You feel the uptick in your heart bringing you back into time. Third, the rise, as if you are pulled vertical across the floor and before you know it, you have taken several steps. It is a minute or so before you are you as you know you. In the rising, you could be any of us. 5. Save the top of your head for the water. Don't let the nonsense burn it out. Cleanse with salt and coolness. Thousands of years ago, it was a spout. Place your head in places worthy. Place your hands over your heart. Bless yourself with generations. That's a start. 6. What the coral said. Breathe. 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 Sing. Let that water move within you. Let it be you. Let your every cilia dance you into healing. Let the warm salt water brighten you. Your tears. Sleep. And when you dream of working, sleep again. Sleep until you dream of floating. Dream until your edge is soft. Dream until you birth yourself in water, singing with the bones of all your lost. Dream until you breathe not from your mouth, not from your nose, but through your hair and through your skin. Dream until you claim the ocean. Breathe until you feel no need to swim. Breathe until your dreams flow out your brain. Breathe and let them in your heart. Breathe and we will call you again. That's a start. And finally, 7. There are very few things that you must do. This is one. This will show you the others. There is a difference between assignment and need. Thank you very much. I'm Alexis Pauline Gumbs. So honored to have been able to be with you in this way. And thank you for supporting Duke Press Poets. Thank you, Duke Press, for supporting poets. Much, much love to each of you. Sending you love, healing, peace, whatever it is that you need. It's my honor. It's my honor. It's my honor to share with you in this way. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Alexis. Amy Ruth is going to introduce our next reader.
David Grubbs is professor of music at Brooklyn College and the Graduate Center, City University of New York, and author of The Voice in the Headphones, Now That the Audience is Assembled, and Records Ruin the Landscape, John Cage, The 60s, and Sound Recording, all published by Duke University Press. As a musician, Grubbs has released 14 solo albums and appeared on more than 190 commercially released recordings. He's known for his cross-disciplinary collaborations with poet Susan Howe and visual artists Anthony McCall and Angela Bullock. And his work has been presented at the Museum of Modern Art, the Solomon R. Guggenheim Museum, the Tate Modern, and the Centre Pompidou. Thank you for being with us, David.
Oh, thank you so much. And thanks to everyone for organizing this and for all the other folks who are reading tonight and everyone participating by being here this evening. So The Voice in the Headphones is a book-length poem that describes one day in the recording studio as an unnamed musician is frantically trying to finish a film soundtrack. And I'm going to read two passages from it that both describe recordings of solo musical improvisation. The musician seats himself at the organ, applying himself to the task of adding to this piece of music. His plan is to record pitches one at a time in order to have the ability to shape discrete volume contours within clusters and dense voicings, to handle the instrument so that it stretches its legs, so it approximates tarantula, the striking anatomy of. Remind us again what happens when the animal loses a leg. We blocked that image. The offensive posture of strike key and depress prey. Each pitch within the cluster throbs autonomously, respires in slow bursting beats of feigned wooziness. Start at the far left of the footboard. Record 5 minutes of examples of volume swells, subsequent passes overdubbed with headphones on, monitoring to what end it's not entirely clear. To seed the cloud, to time the swells to counterbalance, within antiphonal listening to focus on beating patterns based on the speeds of individual tone wheels, the agreement of tone wheel and magnetic pickup. To manage with the fewest but most musical hiccups, the lengthening of the drawbar. Best to get with the math. 8 marks the prime, 8 states the fundamental, 8 legs, and you can always grow a replacement or restart the take. Dividing by 2 doubles the frequency. Dividing once again sends it 2 octaves aloft, 8 to 4 to 2 to 1. Remembering that this is a single jostling group of overtones among many. A détente is heard to hold. Blend octaves, perfectly reanimated fourths, and a thickening firmament of fifths. As the full complement of cylinders engages, the Leslie speaker whirls its unheeded alarm of smaller and smaller intervals and shorter micro-intervallic spans, less shield than echo texture to emotion, less exoskeleton than strutting bones of the beast. Skepticism toward mere measurement in a sequence of swells successfully resolves itself, no matter the legs or layers, no matter the difficult hoisting and balancing of the carapace. Inharmonic synthesis distresses itself from within. Pickups are all ears and don't scruple at the content of their conveyances, least of all this insane spinning speaker town crying, fingertips cresting waterfall. 8 lines winnow with each pass shading a touch quieter. There's always less to say, always less to. The live room's sliding glass doors frame the previous evening's snowfall, but at other times of the year they open onto a stream stocked with trout. But the glass doors are flanked by dyed and spray-painted wall hangings, nicotine-cured sagging bed sheets with silver and gray clouds frogging at eye level. Parachutists in red silhouette descend in diagonal formation against a lozenge-patterned sky of turquoise and military drab. Blitzkrieg, Argyle, Scheissegal, 4 freestanding acoustic baffles sport a similarly hallucinatory aerial dogfight theme. Purple fronds and eye-pocked peacock feathers dispel Japanese cloud wisps and provide cover for hiding and seeking upside-down biplanes in an acid yellow sky. Headspace fills to overflowing as the musician nears an endgame of organ overdubs. Oxygen has long since been sucked out of the substance. 8 organ lines radiate as edges amplified into interference patterns. Noise in the channel scrambles ground control. Must assume we're still rolling, and the spray-painted aerial duelists are forced to improvise as they square off flock of red versus panoply of pink in interpenetrating chevrons, close values auguring close conflict. 8 lines correspond to parachute string lines, terminating in sound-baffling canopies. Each overdub lands a bit more softly than the last, each less distinct and more forgiving. Cue a final billow of fabric. Face the mic. Draw a bead on the silver capsule nested within black matte metal mesh. Meditate on a dull beacon further dulled by the placement of the windscreen. Take a shallow whiff of windscreen. Shift your stance, alter your gaze to actively play the interference pattern, fine-tune the moire, snort at the screen. Center yourself and note the exact placement of your feet, toes just so, for you'll likely need to regain that precise mark. The distance of a dollar bill thwarts proximity effect. Get ready for the voice in the headphones, for your own voice in the headphones, singing, I hear myself singing with the slightest delay, testing ga ga ga, rah rah, ooh, 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 and a suctiony pop against the roof of the mouth, a tsk, and comparable consonant clusters, low pleading moans accompanied by 2 bars of finger snaps, and a blurt of reputable vocalese bottoming out below his range completes the thought. The musician oscillates his face with ludic variable speed, the better to comprehend the microphone's axis. At what point in the head swivel does the voice fall away? A slow approach towards the edge of the pickup pattern tames sibilance and lends a darkness that suits the softest of sighs. Lean back, revel in that improvised side-to-side tremolo, get good and wild and dizzy, and feel the voice as it disappears from the headphones, yet still vibrates throat and chest in an unamplified purr. The musician's mic check and vocal warm-up veer toward increasing abstraction and intimacy as he grinds away with grunts and coos and disciplined, athletic intakes of breath. He gets sidetracked with saliva production and wetness of tone. Kids play musical modulation. The pilot undergoes high G training with his mouth at its widest in the centrifuge of his refusal to breathe. Strangulated sounds command attention. Adjust wind scream. The musician's gasps and sighs and animalistic tokens of pleasure could be revisited as future musical material were he not graying out and undergoing extremes of tunnel vision. A rapid succession of clicks in his headphones, the clearing of a disembodied throat, and the ambient hum of the control room startled the musician, putting him on notice that the engineer has been privy to these excursions into gargling and choking and sounding from deepest within. The floodlights are switched on. The musician catches his breath and confirms that all is well, he's fine, just fine, and that he's ready to approve the selection of microphone. He feels loosened up and ready to try a take, although a shift in his demeanor suggests that something has been dislodged. Where is the friction? And where's the counterforce? The studio's absence of audience is never so palpable as when facing a vocal mic. The challenge is to improvise the counterweight for each individual to define his or her own threshold and release. Studio is to your satisfaction, often regrettably. Studio is the absence of pushback. Studio can be brutally low stakes, even as fear of God begins at home. The dial at the far right controls the volume of the live vocal, and the musician raises it to a level such that a 60-cycle hum gloomily subtends. A solitary bounce of the headphone cord against his shirt violently cuffs his ears, putting even this accomplished masochist on notice. Obedient, bodily hypercognizant, ready to, you're rolling. The musician leans into the windscreen and delicately scrapes his cheek against the nylon that's meant to stop pops, exhales deadened plosives, and a basso continuum of rubbing, skin, clothing, anything close at hand, contribute to the vocabulary of the performance. Combined with gulps of air from holding one's breath too long, plus a smidge of the quietest singing in the world, the quietest yet captured on this snow-covered planet. It's the dawn of, and maybe the final example of, principled restraint and extravagantly delicate singing communicate an injunction against voices in their everyday array. The potentially deafening volume in the headphones is key to a controlled situation that restricts and compels song, deposes under duress, self-imposed, and provides a measure of pushback. The musician settles into sustained tones free of bending or shading. What's there in the image to echo against? For now, leave sound and picture unzipped, just the one voice with gentle slapback and darkened timbre as counterpoint to sky and blinding white flats. Nod to a wizened director who proposed in a newspaper interview 2 distinct versions of a film he admired, but whose score he found impossibly apt. One mutes the sound, one abolishes the image. Automatic singing is the dream. Automatic song worth the singing, the dream you dream your life about. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, David. Okay. Next up is going to be Margaret Randall. Margaret Randall is a poet, essayist, oral historian, translator, memoirist, and photographer who has published over 150 books of poetry and prose, including I Never Left Home, Exporting Revolution, Cuba's Global Solidarity, Haiti Santa Maria, Cuban Revolutionary, She Led by Transgression, and Che on My Mind, all published by Duke University Press. Randall was awarded the Poet of Two Hemispheres Prize by Poesia en Paralelo Cerro in Quito, Ecuador, and Cuba's Haiti Santa Maria Medal, and the University of New Mexico gave her an honorary doctorate of letters, all in 2019. In addition to giving seminars and workshops throughout the United States and Latin America, Randall has taught at the University of New Mexico, Macalester College, the University of Delaware, and Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut. Randall lives in Albuquerque, New Mexico. In addition, I just want to say that Margaret is a wonderful advocate for the poetry community and has been really thoughtful, emailing me advice for planning this event that I've really appreciated. So thank you, Margaret.
Thank you, Amy. And I guess I'll just return the compliment, because Amy is the person who designed my beautiful memoir, and thank you for that. You did such a beautiful job. I want to say how good it is to be with all of you virtually and to be reading with Renato, Alexis, and David. And thank you, Duke University Press. Thank you, Amy, for putting this together. I'm going to read 3 older poems first. These are all included in my memoir, and I'll end with 4 short poems written during this current time of crisis. The first poem is called Made Rich by Art and Revolution. When I am gone and August comes to my desert, rain will soak sand, its rich scent rising to enter the lungs of another mother or walker, someone whose intention and desire I cannot know. When I am gone, this painting of little islands, miniature trees, and birds floating in a magical sea of blue will hang in someone else's house. Will that person tell the story of poor Nicaraguan peasants made rich by art and revolution? A granddaughter may inherit my turquoise earrings, the clay pans I've used for years, their pungency filling the house, will offer up a new generation of bread. Someone not yet born may read this poem, but who will ask the questions born of the answers I juggle today? Who will know the heat of this great love, or catch fragments of my memory reassembling just before dawn? This next poem is called Cool Compresses and Non-Binding Law. I have a feeling that what we're suffering today with this coronavirus crisis has a lot to do with global warming. So this is a poem about that, although it was written some years back. Cool compresses and non-binding law. Now the patient's fever spikes at dawn as well as late afternoon. Cool compresses and non-binding law do nothing to bring it down. Glaciers melt, filling valleys with oceans of salt. The patient must sleep upright. Her lungs no longer expand or retract in harmony. Teeth chattering like insulted bone, she sweats toxic waste and fracking's poison, vomits the bile of mutilated seed. The fire on her brow swallows wilderness, great cities and small towns, branches crackle like charred veins, science fiction, a pale portrait of her agony. Preventative medicine was the only way to avoid this fatal turn. We're years past that now. Breathtaking no longer means beautiful. No morphine, hospice, or final ritual. This illness increases dangerous levels of testosterone. The patient's fever rises off the charts. Her death, a matter of time. Her preventable disease reaches every orphan child, every pristine landscape buried in ash, hurricane or earthquake off the Richter scale. A pandemic of rapes and murders opens like sores on her once fertile body. Desperate migrations push through permanently clogged arteries. The patient's echoing warnings may be observed or not by some future species when oblivious time returns. This next one I wrote in the early 90s. Most of you probably remember the tsunami that battered the coast of Thailand, but it seems a poem relevant to these days as well. It's called Tsunami. 1. Hours before ground zero on Kerlak Beach, 8 elephants turned their eyes to the sea, then trumpeted a sound their trainer says he can only describe as crying. Briefly they calmed, then bellowed again, responding in unfettered certainty to future death. Dang Salangam remembers the tourists mounted on those great backs, their astonished eyes as the elephants ran with them to higher ground, up, and how those animals without mounts broke their steel chains, used their trunks to hoist others, and raced for the jungle-covered hill, away from the beach where thousands would die. 2. The first of the giant waves broke then, a rush of water thundering the turning just short of where the elephants swayed and sobbed. Before the ocean cracked, water pulled from a terrified shore, bearing a landscape never meant for the eyes of humans, only to return ferocious, sweeping houses, refrigerators, shoes, a decision, a yawning mouth, words forever unspoken. gazes fixed on that which had disappeared, fragile structures, roots deep as generations. A young mother hugging her newborn, a man screaming for his brother, hands torn from hands, fishing families, carpenters, the village teacher, the shoekeeper, and the shuffler. And oh, the bravest children, those who ventured farthest from what moments before had been their schoolyard, all taken by nature's betrayal. Some bearing witness seconds before they succumb, others damned by survival, living with memories replay, called back to the human register by 8 elephants whose great hearts broke the code that clasps us to disaster. And as I mentioned, I want to end with some recent work. As we've been forced to isolate ourselves at home, I began writing 1 and sometimes 2 or 3 poems a day. They stopped showing up almost as mysteriously as they'd arrived. But then I found I had a collection which will be published by Wings Press in January. It will be called Starfish on a Beach, the Pandemic Poems. So I'm going to read a few of these to close. The first of them is called Memory Tries to Get Our Attention. Memory wanders the earth in this era of pandemic and fear. She whispers stories of past plagues, reminds us of holocausts and genocides, tells us this too shall pass. Memory tries to get our attention with books, songs, graphs, even humor, assures us the friendly touch we missed today will still be there tomorrow. But memory herself is exhausted, battered by an onslaught of mixed messages, history books with missing chapters, biased news reports, and self-proclaimed scribes. She insists she's as timely as science and hope, tries to take her seat at the table of experts, get us to see her for who she is at a time when she knows she is needed as never before. Listen to memory calling. Ask our elders for her tales of pain and heroics, kindness and relevance. She will take your hand if you give her yours. And this one is called Beneath the Waves. This is a time when we summon tears that don't come, grief hiding like the current that pulls a body beneath the waves. This is a time when a smile may not be a smile, even in translation, but a stand-in for where our eyes would go if they were open to future tense. Be afraid, very afraid, is the mantra of those who benefit from our despair. Breathe, breathe deep, whisper those who have been here before. And this is called Ying Ying and Li Li. Hong Kong's zoo, closed since the virus struck, finally provides the intimacy Ying Ying and Li Li need to mate in peace. 14 long years, their handlers have urged them to take advantage of this moment that comes only once each year, confounding those cognizant of the panda's hormonal peaks. Their balloon-like bodies do not find it easy, Training films and other aids have failed at demonstrating the required positions. The pandas have become vulnerable to extinction, as some of us are vulnerable to the virus that's given them this newfound freedom. Deterrent to humans, window of opportunity for pandas. The world's creatures accommodate ourselves to a different time. And I'm going to end with this poem called Trap a Minute or Two. Yesterday looks different now that today has its hands about our throats. Tomorrow dissolves in a haze of what ifs, its image pulsing through our veins. Today looms larger than life or death. Its chorus of cleaning instructions devour time. Trap a minute or two to look in the eyes of those you love and tell them, yes. Thank you very much.
Muted clapping.
Thank you so much, Margaret. So Amy Ruth is going to introduce Renato for our final reader.
Renato Rosaldo is an award-winning poet and one of the world's leading anthropologists. He is Professor Emeritus at New York University, a member of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences, and past president of the American Ethnological Society. His recent books include The Chasers and The Day of Shelley's Death, The Poetry and Ethnography of Grief, both published by Duke University Press. Thank you so much for joining us, Renato.
Now unmuted? Yes. Okay. I was thanking the hosts from Duke University Press and my fellow poets and the audience, some of whom I met before and others of whom I can't see at the moment, but I'm delighted we're all here. I'll read from The Chasers. I'll read 7 poems from The Chasers. Hopefully it gives you some idea of what the book is.
Ooh, Roberto, I love him.
Prelude in my voice. How to imagine the Chasers, a band of 12 high school guys, more club than gang. Their jackets made them visible at Tucson High, 1956 to 1959. 11 were Mexican American, 1 Jewish. Ethnicity was trumped. You were or were not a chaser. I was a chaser. Most said we'd turn out badly. My intention was to go native, become Mexican American, not to write it up, to deepen my humanity, and I did. After meeting up for our 50th Tucson High School reunion, we chasers remembered what we never forgot, what we held close, the people and places we never let go. Little wonder that once we resumed, we couldn't stop gathering, looking back, unforgetting. Fastest naked sprinter. voice of Dicky de la Hante speaking about Ray Escalante. We had swimming parties at El Encanto Estates. We'd scout, see who's on vacation, and use their pool. One time when we were there, Ray forgot his trunks, the beachcombers we wore. Ray didn't have any. We were swimming when somebody called the cops. They came and we took off running. They threw on the spotlight and there was Ray running across the street, bare-ass naked. One morning at Shannon's house, her parents took off for the day. Ray lived across the street. He saw the car leave and went over. They're doing shenanigans when her parents come back, and Shannon comes out in a bathrobe. Her dad goes in the bedroom, opens the closet door, and there's Ray. He takes off across the street, bare-ass, naked. Ray and Shannon got into an argument. He sped off, rolled that old green thing, flipped it on the corner. We ran there, Shannon hysterical. Ray stood up, saying, like he did, "Oh, Jesus." A quiet guy. My voice. I do the chasers thing. Hang out in the stairwell, studiously casual. Nod chin slightly upward. Greeting friends. I watch the others, their chin lifts. My imitation precise. Determined to recover Spanish, for me, a matter of pride. I do relentless grammar drills, make Mexican history mine, read Los de Abajo, as well as Pedro Páramo. So bookish, busting ass to be Mexican-American. I observe Bobby, master of hard-assing, mock aggression, rapid-fire retorts, verbal virtuosity. If only I could be like him. First time I give it a try, Frank pulls me aside, arm around my shoulder, says, "No more, don't do it again. You'll get in trouble. Remember, it's never really about the other guy's mother." A kid from Madison. I've never hard-assed. I feel like a phony Mexican-American. Become a quiet guy. No more banter. You won't do well. Voice of Angie Lopez. I wonder whether in high school we separated from Anglos or they segregated us. Neither Irene, rodeo queen, nor Clara, student council, kept their distance, but many of us did. Guidance counselors played a role. When I registered for 9th grade, I requested algebra, but my counselor asked if I knew what it was. I said, I took it in 8th grade. He asked for my report card, but I didn't have it. He said, let's put you in general math. If you do well, we'll put you in algebra next year. No more discussion. I knew no better, just went along. The class was all Mexicans. I remember Bobby Sainz, gorgeous, but he couldn't add or subtract. I was bored, passed only because Eddie Lopez and I competed for grades. Next year, algebra, all Anglos, all freshmen. Counselors treated us as if we were dumb, practice away from college. When I told my counselor I was going to college, he discouraged me. And I thought, he just doesn't know. I'm smart. English class, all Mexicans. Mr. Egan, the teacher, asked, who's going to college? I raised my hand. He said, you won't do well. Your vocabulary's poor. You'll be placed in English X. Never get out. Tears rolling down my cheeks. I walked away. Papá y yo hablamos. Papá dice, el delante me dice que le da vergüenza hablar conmigo en español. Piensa que no lo habla bien, dice el chato. ¿Te intimidaste? ¿Qué le dijiste? Papá dice, le pregunté que si me entendía cuando le hablaba. Él dijo que me entendía sin problema. Y le dije que yo también le entendía perfectamente. Le dije, si nos entendemos así, seguiremos hablándonos en español, sin nada de vergüenza. No hay por qué hablar inglés. Packager. This has an epigraph from Jose Montoya's classic poem, El Louis. His life had been remarkable. The voices here are Louis Dancil and my voice. We eat supper at Frank's. Louis is silent. After dessert, he tells about his life flying Cessnas filled with weed from Mexico and Jamaica to just over the Arizona border. The dangerous, addictive rush kept him in the business. He found the best places for menudo in Santa Fe and the South Valley of Albuquerque. In Boston, he once played poker with Ted Turner. Yes, that Ted Turner, whose bets were so big, Louis folded. His guardian angel was a woman who studied law to get justice for her unjustly imprisoned husband. Louis gave her money, supported her through law school. He was no snitch. His first time in prison, he was well taken care of. Given joints, he then passed on to people who cleaned his cell. When he returned to the business, he dropped down the totem pole, transporter to packager. he shrink-wrapped 300-pound blocks of marijuana to load them in car trunks. Before he got busted the second time, his expensive cars and fancy entrance gate were asking for trouble. Once his boss was arrested, he knew he'd be next. Knowing he was being watched, he stood in his front yard and smoked a fine joint. He knew he'd get no joints that fine in prison. The court ordered him to rehab and took a year off his prison term. In Florence Penitentiary, his second prison term, he served as the elder in a Native American sweat lodge. 50 people had his back. Even so, prison was hard this time. He's too old to continue as before. Because he never snitched and is out of the loop, he can now safely quit the business. After Louis finished talking, we sat stunned, silent. Bobby said, Louis shown we were hot air, not guys on the wild side. The Chaser Mystique, voices of Bobby Shoemaker and Richard Rocha. Most said we'd turn out badly. Our names signified wild guy, partier, fighter. We thrived on reputation. Whether they admired or hated us, everyone knew who we were, our jackets, our spot in the stairwell. We played the cat, built a mystique, but we were just Mexican kids out for fun. Nothing profound. One dad in moving and storage, Chico's dad, a professor, another selling beer at ball games, another a cop, and yet another head of a rotating credit association, the Alianza Hispanoamericana. We were in shape. Every summer our arms threw baseballs. Our backs strained under bulky furniture. One worked as a lifeguard. We hadn't seen each other for 50 years, gathered at the Tucson High School reunion. Told ourselves stories about ourselves. Laughed as if we'd been together the day before. At our reunion, people still talked about us, still gave a shit after 50 years. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Renato.
Thank you. Thank you to all of our readers. If everyone wants to unmute and give them a round of applause, we could do that.
Great reading